we did not hear back. But a spokesman for Sekulow told The Guardian the financial arrangements between the ACLJ case and all related entities are regularly reviewed by outside independent compensation experts and have been determined to be reasonable. Joining me now are Charlie Pierce, writer-at-large for Esquire magazine, and Frank Schaeffer, author of the book Why I Am an Atheist Who Believes in God. Thank you guys both for being here. Charlie, I'm going to start with you, though. There are instructions that The Guardian was able to find for some of the telemarketers who were calling to raise money for the ACLJ, which is supposed to sound like the ACLU. I think it's meant to. And what they would say to them if people didn't have the money. And it's a little bit, let me see if I can find one here. Oh, this is actually, let's just do 5. Let's do some of the pitches. 5. This is cut 5. Islamic extremists are headed in your direction, and you are most likely the main target, Sekulow himself told people in a recorded message used in fundraising calls during 2011. Telemarketers were instructed to tell people who initially said they could not donate that Islamist extremists will succeed if we don't do something right away. If the person resisted a second time, the script said to tell them, it sounds like you really want to help. What do you make of this tactic?
Well, first of all, Joy, you're very good at that. You could have a second career reading those.
Will you send me money?
Look, who knows? Look, from selling indulgences and saints' heads to Jim Baker and the 700 Club to Ralph Reed's weird connections to Jack Abramoff, Christianity has always been a fine environment for eager entrepreneurs. But this bunch, I mean, that's a lot of dough they're talking about.
Yeah.
And they seem to be pitching themselves at the elderly and the terrified, or the terrified elderly. And that I find not exactly consonant with the Gospels.
Not quite what Jesus preached. Frank Schaeffer, you know, you come from this world, and I'm wondering why this is so effective. I mean, you think about the fact that these are people making exorbitant sums of money. Let's just look at some of the family members. Mr. Sekulow's brother, Gary, the COO and CFO of Case, $2.6 million for him. Adam Sekulow, his nephew, $518,000. Logan Sekulow, his son, $471,000. Jordan Sekulow, his other son, $137,000, according to the Washington Post. And just overall, out of $229 million raised by these organizations between 2011 and 2015, $5.5 million going to members of the family, $23 million to their firms. Why do people in the Christian community not see this, notice this, and why are they not offended by it?
Well, Joy, it's part of the fallout of the culture wars, and they have decided that everyone is the enemy. It's the same with Donald Trump when he talks about any story that is against him is fake news. They assume that when they hear things like this, somehow this is the liberal media again saying things that are not true. They have built a system around themselves to guarantee only seeing one point of view. You have to understand, my father, Francis Schaeffer, was one of the founders of the religious right, and I met with Pat Robertson back in the day when Jay Sekulow was just sort of a kid hanging around. He had recently converted from Judaism to Christianity, and he saw an opportunity to join this band of grifters, these folks who are essentially con artists. And it just amazes me, all some 30 years later, now that I've long been out of the movement, as you know, to see how these kind of people find each other. I mean, look, would you go figure? Pat Robertson's sidekick, who started a bunch of legal foundations to essentially con evangelicals into sending money so he could save America from liberals, now is the defense counsel for this con artist president who either is selling you bad steaks or a non-university university. It's just stunning how these guys belong together. It would all be sort of a sick joke on evangelical Christians and the 81% of white evangelicals who voted for Trump, except for one thing. It shows such bad judgment on the part of this idiot president of ours that once again, you really have to say, do you know who you just hired? Was it someone you saw on Fox for 2 minutes and liked because he was kissing up to you? Or do you know that he is just another Ralph Reed con man, Donald Trump type himself? He's like you, Donald. He's as much of a con man as you. Get yourself a real lawyer.
It's interesting because there are a lot of similarities. I mean, you had Donald Trump, the brilliant work in the Washington Post of David Fairnhold, uncovering the sort of scammy nature of some of the Trump charities. A Legal Times article in 2005 revealed that in 2001, one of Sekulow's nonprofit organizations paid $2.3+ million to purchase 2 homes that were used primarily by Sekulow and his wife. The same nonprofit also subsidized a 3rd home that he uses in North Carolina. And meanwhile, they were telling people, the telemarketers were telling people that Sekulow actually works for people for free. The American Center for Law and Justice is basically the anti-ACLU, and Jay Sekulow is the chief counsel of the American Center for Law and Justice. He never charges for his services, and he is our best shot at protecting our religious freedom in the nation today, is one of the call sheets. They paid $21 million to nonprofit legal firms owned by Jay Sekulow. Your witness, Charlie Pierce.
Oh, as I said, I think, what American television Christianity needs is a reformation. It needs some stick-swinging prophets to go in there and explain to these people that you have moved far beyond your original mission. If you want to sell aluminum siding to people, go sell aluminum siding to people. But don't sell the gospel like it's swampland in Florida.
Yeah, and I mean, Frank, you've also seen Jay Sekulow and others, and he in particular, delve into the Seth Rich conspiracy theory, doubting Russia hacked our election. So he's getting into the politics of it too. Is there a way to break the evangelical community from this, sort of right-wing kind of world where whatever somebody like a Jay Sekulow says to them, they will buy it and they will keep voting for the Donald Trumps?
Well, back in the day, Joy, when my dad was really, along with Schaeffer, who became Ronald Reagan's Surgeon General, and me, who produced a series of films called Whatever Happened to the Human Race that essentially started the evangelical anti-abortion movement, we were concerned with real issues back in those days. But like that proverbial frog that slowly gets boiled to death as you turn it up 1 degree an hour, the evangelicals have gone from being concerned with saving babies, and I'm not talking now about the pro-life issue as an issue, but just as an example, to being concerned with carrying out the Koch brothers' agenda on energy policy, because that's part of the big business that has taken over the Republican Party. Look, I have handwritten note from Ronald Reagan lamenting my father's death. I knew the Bush family. I used to stay with Jack Kemp in Washington. And whatever you used to say about Ronald Reagan or Bush Sr. or Jack Kemp, they were idealists in their own way. They were true politicians, statesmen. I disagree with a lot of the politics now as I look back, but these were not con artists who were starting nepotistic family businesses, whether it's called Trump or Jay Sekulow's ripoff of evangelicals, or Pat Robertson, who himself has become a billionaire with all his garbage on television, talking about stopping hurricanes and all the rest. What he's really been doing is building an empire that wound up even owning mining interests in apartheid South Africa at one point. So you got to understand, these folks are grifters. Yeah. Get it through your head. Donald Trump is a grifter, and he is in bed with other grifters. The Trump children would understand the Sekulow children perfectly as Ivanka goes off and gets a Chinese patent on her product so she can sell them in China when no one else can get them. These folks are grifters. Forget politics. Yeah. Ronald Reagan would hate this whole crew. Yeah. Richard Nixon would hate this whole crew. They are taking the Republican brand and destroying it. Yeah. And as someone who knew leading Republicans in the 1980s, and though I consider myself a liberal now and will vote Democrat, the fact is I come from that background, and these guys would be unrecognizable to those people.
Yeah. Frank Schaeffer, I'm going to have you come back. Thank you very much. And Charlie Pierce will come back in a little bit. Thank you both very much. Up next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Will the base of the Democratic Party get a seat at the table? Ooh, don't go away.